Humankind has created extraordinary works. The legacy of our ancestors reminds us of the long road we have traveled as a civilization. This heritage is part of our history, makes up our identity, and nourishes our pride and our dignity as human beings. Dignity is undervalued and violated in many places in the world. Not only by wars, but also by many more endemic situations like poverty, violence, domination, lack of education, heritage destruction, or sanitary and environmental problems. But dignity emerges when we improve people's lives. When we boost healthcare and education programs. When supporting individual and social projects. When favoring women's empowerment. When bringing electricity and water to homes. When rehabilitating cultural heritage or creating green parks in polluted urban areas. These initiatives help to restore their dignity and hope. Kabul in Afghanistan, Lahore in Pakistan, and Delhi in India are settings of major rehabilitation projects. Large cities that are facing their own challenges, but sharing a powerful legacy. They were connected for centuries. Their relationship has diminished in recent years, but still remains. Despite having vanished 160 years ago, the dust of the splendorous Mughal Empire that strengthened the links between them is still in the air. Afghan society is still fighting for its recovery. The intensive care unit of the Children's Hospital in Kabul takes care of many premature babies. An infant who doctors sometimes believe has been given a death sentence is unexpectedly brought back to life. When these doctors talk about their country, they say wherever there is life, there is hope. They believe that Afghan society has not been entirely defeated. Better times will come, the miracle will come, peace will come. Afghanistan has been at war for 4 decades.
Surrounded by the Mujahideen, the Soviet garrison in Tamir has to be supplied by helicopter.
A bloody, devastating and intolerable war for any country.
The Russians fire back.
The young Republic of Afghanistan was invaded by the Soviet Union in 1979. Over the next 10 years, the Mujahideen, backed by the US, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, fought the Soviets during a key chapter in the Cold War.
The Mujahideen have begun to receive a variety of outdated arms and ammunition from abroad.
The Mujahideen won't attempt to hold Tameer. The main aim of the attack was to lure out the Russian relief column so that it could be destroyed by ambush.
When the Soviet troops were defeated in 1989, power was restored to the hands of the new Afghan government, but guerrilla factions soon joined forces to overthrow it. These warlords did not lead the country into peace, but fought each other by wielding ethnic and religious differences. The atrocities of this new conflict led the population to welcome the victory of the Taliban in 1996. But the relative peace established by these fundamentalists soon became another nightmare for a large majority of the population. The crackdown and imposition of the most radical Sharia law repressed freedoms, frustrated peace, and impeded progress. Afghanistan under the Taliban became the headquarters of the international jihad against the West, led by Osama bin Laden. The brutal attacks in New York on the 11th of September 2001 pointed to Afghanistan as the refuge of international terrorism. The US and its allies responded by launching an intense military campaign to defeat and overthrow the Taliban, achieving a quick yet unstable victory. The new Afghan government was installed with Western aid and went on to control Kabul and other cities and regions. In February 2020, United States and Taliban signed a deal to a phased withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan as a first step to further discussions among Afghans for a final peace settlement. Kabul is today a city of almost 4 million inhabitants, protected by camera-mounted surveillance blimps and many police and military checkpoints. The city is growing in population and hope, but daily life continues to be constrained by the fear of a return to violence. 40 years of conflicts, battles, bombings, car bombs, assassinations and violations have hardened the emotions and curtailed the dreams of much of the population. So it is no surprise that violence is still a constant presence, often accepted with resignation among the adults. But many more expectations of building a better future exist among young people and children. It is from these young people that a decisive push towards peace and progress is to be expected. And also from younger educated women who wish to rebel against the sexism that condemns them to be second-class citizens, that forces them to live imprisoned behind the bars of tradition, and often deprived of the education and social visibility they so crave. 80% of women are illiterate. Education is a basic right they are demanding, but it can only be exercised when there is peace. Illiteracy represents a major obstacle when it comes to transmitting culture, respect, and human values, all of which are needed to bring an end to the long conflict. This shortcoming has made it easier for radicals to distort the arguments of tradition and religion in order to persecute culture, progress, and gender equality. During the brief periods of freedom before and after the Taliban, many Kabul girls went to school when they had the chance. They read, studied, signed up for workshops, learned mathematics, music, or foreign languages. Bold actions with which they sometimes had to pay with harassment and aggression. The education of the population has been scarce over the last 40 years and has even been frowned upon by most fundamentalist sectors. Music, cinema, and arts have generally also been scorned, expressly prohibited by the Taliban in areas where they hold power. Some fundamentalists view art and entertainment as an offense against religious precepts, as well as a dangerous tool of Western cultural contamination. Destroyed cinemas are proof of this sickly fever. Cured of this illness today, young people are interested in reviving the artistic expressions that were prohibited. Music is one of the most important arts to revive.
از 4 جهت میشه گفت که ما موسیقی رو برش علاقه داریم. 1 عشق، 2 آرامش، 3 یک حس با آدم میده که تمام غمای آدم فراموش میشه. یعنی وقتی که در موسیقی وارد میشی کل چیزهای بیرونی از یادت میره. وارد موسیقی که شدی فقط به موسیقی فکر میکنی، پیشرفت دیگه هیچ یادت نمیکنه.
Islamic civilization in Central Asia has produced many examples of valuable cultural creativity and influence over the centuries. With artistic expressions like Qawwali, a classical musical style that emerged more than 500 years ago based on Sufi poetry and oral traditions that spread from Persia to India. Music in Afghanistan in the mid-19th century was a renowned art form, and musicians prospered everywhere, performing a wide variety of repertoires, styles and genres at weddings, tea houses, and later beginning in the 20th century on the radio. With the advent of peace, however fragile, recovering and disseminating traditional music has become significant.
Music has an invisible power. That's why it's important for us, and that's why some people has a fear of that. This power unite Afghans together. Music doesn't have a language, doesn't have a barrier, doesn't know any ethnicity. All music are precious for us and for Afghans. So this is a very, very important tool for peace building, for a kind of country, for post-war countries like ours, is a very, very valuable tool for promoting peace, unity, and cohesion.
Peace has meant that people are also recovering traditional dances, which they are now performing without fear or shame in public parks. Since 2002, when the hostilities had come to an end imposed by the US and its allies, several humanitarian organizations began work on reconstructing the country and improving the conditions of life for Afghans. In addition to reconstructing buildings and infrastructure, providing food and medical assistance and schooling the population, many more initiatives have also been launched. One of the most experienced development organizations is the Aga Khan Development Network, which together with Afghan institutions and foreign governments has committed over $1 billion in development assistance to the country, helping people of all ages to learn a skill, support themselves financially, and escape from marginalization and violence. There is no better way to restore dignity and lay the foundations for social peace than helping people to find a job and earn a salary. These students enrolled in carpet weaving courses will easily find a job after completion. There are 130 students in this tailoring course.
خانمای بیوه هستن، بیچاره هستن و دخترایی که در مکتب هستن تعداد زیادشون علاقه بسیار خاص دارن که بیان کار کنن و تعدادی که در خانه هستن برای ازیا هم مفید است. ما شاگردای داشتیم که در اینجا کار میکردن، مادرشون در نانوایی کار میکردن، یک بسیار از او کار دخترها رنج میبرد که مادر ما این کار میکنن، خودشون خیاطی یاد گرفتن. حال شکر فعلا شاگردای داریم که ما استاد هستن، خودشون کار میکنن در خانه، یک عاید از این نگاه به دست میارن، برای فامیل خود کمک میکنن.
At this vocational center of Kabul, there are many other workshops focusing on a combination of learning and the rehabilitation of cultural heritage. Another example can be found in the rehabilitation project Machine Khana, the first military-industrial complex built in the country to manufacture its own weaponry at the end of the 19th century. For 100 years it produced guns, rifles, ammunition and military dress, as well as manufacturing currency. From 1990 to 1996, from the withdrawal of the Soviets to the Taliban regime, the city was heavily damaged. And the battlefront among rival factions was located in this area that lies between these two hills. Most of the buildings in the military complex were destroyed, and the few that remained standing ultimately served as armament warehouses and parking for military vehicles. The rehabilitation project of all the Machine Khana buildings aims to convert this former industrial complex into a large cultural leisure center for public use, helping to serve the growing commercial demand of this area in the city.
40 years of war, not only do we have the modern built environment destroyed, but also part of our history erased as well. And this is part of our history that is not connected with the public because we have walls all around it. Let's bring down the walls, let's restore it, and let's give to the public a sense of what can be done, what has been done, and what can be made out of it. Basically, this is part of our heritage. True, it's been over 120 years. It's not ancient history, but it is history nevertheless. It gives hope to the potential of Afghanistan.
More than 600 people, including masons, carpenters, metal workers, tinsmiths and other laborers, are working on the rehabilitation of Machine Khana, and many of them have found the necessary stability to escape from marginalization and violence and rejoin society. This rehabilitation work is also a source of training for future architects, workers, and artisans. The reconstruction of Gudri Mosque, built upon the ruins of an earlier mosque at the beginning of the 20th century and destroyed during the war, is also serving to train local architecture students in the restoration and conservation of cultural heritage. These initiatives not only recover the cultural heritage to the community, but also serve as a stimulus for sustainable development. This is the Timur Shah Mausoleum, one of the best jewels of the past in Kabul, damaged for many years before its recent restoration.
During these war times, it was used by the container shops. A lot of tailors were here and cloth sellers. It was like a shanty town. The damages were that because it had a metal roof on top of it, and that metal roof was damaged by a lot of war bullets. And of course, when a metal roof is damaged, a lot of water penetrates through it, and that goes into the structure itself. So because it was left in neglect and no repair, and the people around it, the shopkeepers were also not very careful in keeping it. And we had some homeless people living in it even. Actually, they had fire and leftover garbages, etc., etc.
Rehabilitating and opening mausoleums, mosques, museums, gardens, and other historically significant buildings to the public by creating new facilities and services convert them into tourist attractions, and the visitors, whether local or foreign, can generate a positive effect on the local economy. Dynamism drives economic growth wherever it can be found. The historic gardens of Babur are visited by scores of people every day. Babur was the founder and first emperor of the Mughal dynasty. He was a distant descendant of Tamerlane on his father's side, and perhaps also of Genghis Khan through his mother. Babur established a huge empire throughout the Indian subcontinent in the 16th century that spread across the regions of today's Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and up to Bengal. In 1530, he died in Agra, where he was initially buried, but years later his remains were moved to Kabul, and it is there that they have rested ever since, in this marble tomb located in the gardens created by him. The Mughal empires had great fondness for building lush gardens in which to enjoy contact with fountains, trees, plants, and flowers. Babur's descendants continued this taste for gardens as sanctuaries of peace and contact with the beauty of nature. The park's 12-hectare compound was opened to the public in 1933, but later, after the 1970s, it was left in a deplorable state as a result of a spiral of combats.
Babur Garden suffered a lot during the Civil War, specifically in the 1990s to 1994s, where Kabul city as a capital of Afghanistan was divided between fractions and they fight each other, and the garden suffered a lot. All trees almost chopped or looted, burned it even. Construction in building was also demolished and destructed. And plumbing system, irrigation system was totally destroyed. It was very less chance for the public to visit at that time the garden.
With the arrival of peace, the rehabilitation of the gardens of Babur has become one of the star projects aimed at recovering the city's symbols of identity. The rehabilitation took 6 years of intense work. Its perimeter walls, terraces, fountains, ponds, and canals have all been restored, in addition to its various pavilions, palaces, and tombs. The parks of Babur and also Chehil Situn Garden are today the two main leisure areas for the inhabitants of Kabul.
Public needs a green space. The Kabul city now very much crowded. It is mostly occupied by buildings, by infrastructure, and by residents. That's why the existence of all these gardens is very important to the public of the Kabul. Specifically on the Fridays, which is public day in Afghanistan, so they're spending their free time to just enjoy peace, security, tranquility, and green spaces.
Thousands of citizens choose these parks as their main place of recreation. There are no better places in Kabul to meet with the family, chat with strangers, or make new friends. Once there, they can forget about unpleasant war memories, animosities, or misgivings. Quite a different situation from the Taliban years, where not only music, TV, and films were prohibited, but also picnics and playing in public. They even banned children from flying kites, a tradition that dates back many years. Flying a kite was a sin and offense, perhaps because releasing it to the sky was too much of a metaphor for freedom. There have been periods of progress and regression, but no other like that of the Taliban. They wanted to erase history and rewrite it according to their own script. This is the way to understand the deliberate destruction of the rock-cut Buddha sculptures in the Bamiyan Valley in 2001. Or the destruction by hammer blows of the sculptures and display cabinets in the National Museum in Kabul. What was one of the most important museums in Central Asia, containing antiquities from all ages, has managed to reopen again, but this time with considerable security measures. It has been attacked and looted ever since the beginning of the war. The building was hit many times by rockets, mortars, and grenades, and many of its treasures were stolen and sold on the black market. But fortunately, not everything was lost, because in 1989, the museum's directors moved 22,000 objects into hiding in the basement of the presidential palace. And several pieces were once again moved to a safe place in 1994 to save them from destruction. The museum was rebuilt with international funding after the fall of the Taliban, and studies are now underway to move it to a larger, more modern building.
A museum has a big responsibility of actually propagation of culture, of good between people, and bring peace in mind of people, which is actually needed in this society after this wars that everybody is talking about fight and everybody is just thinking about fight, especially in the villages. And that's why it's very, very important. If it was, if I had the possibility, I would expand the museum activities all over Afghanistan, in the provinces, in the villages.
The rehabilitation of the museum, with its plans to redisseminate Afghan history, is a small initiative among hundreds of more immediate, modest proposals to regain pride and hope. Many other urgent needs have had to be addressed since the end of the war. Thousands of homes have had to be totally or partially rebuilt, be they historical buildings or those of a more recent construction. In the center, old houses of great architectural value that have been rebuilt still stand side by side with adjoining houses destroyed by bombs.
Before it was just a ruin. It was just an old buildings. It was just it was very hard for us to live in here because most of this it was destroyed during the war, factional fighting between the factional groups in Afghanistan. But after that, when the Aga Khan Foundation came, also they restored it from the bottom.
This reconstructed house dates from the beginning of the 20th century and has been continuously inhabited by the descendants of the master carpenter who built it. The three-story facade facing the courtyard displays characteristic vertical sliding wooden shutters known as patai. These houses are extraordinary examples of classic Afghan architecture. Built with compacted clay bricks and wood, and usually inhabited by several families, organized around a central courtyard that becomes the main setting for community life. In addition to rebuilding or restoring homes, millions of euros of international aid have been earmarked for repairing the electricity and drinking water supply networks, as well as for the construction of drains and urban sewers.
And this encompasses working with communities, not only getting their buy-in and involving them and training them in conservation, but also working in the areas where they live, doing infrastructure activities, upgrading drainage, providing storm drainage, access improvements, and also socioeconomic training. This is very much designed to increase the impact of conservation and ensure that communities around our project sites also become sustainable and are engaged in the work.
Paving streets and channeling sewage has been a hard undertaking, but essential to improve sanitary conditions and prevent infections and epidemics caused by the dumping of rubbish and wastewater. Recovering the urban landscape and the physical elements of daily life has involved major efforts, thereby underlining the desire to heal the wounds of war. The reconstruction of mosques, tombs, and religious sanctuaries has also been crucial. Several reconstructed buildings have great symbolic value, such as the sanctuary housing the remains of two brothers who introduced Islam to Kabul in the 7th century. It is located on a promontory rising above the neighborhood of Ashakan wa Arafan, Dari words that mean lovers and mystics.
In that process of Afghans finding a place for themselves in the future, with Islam being the religion of this country, the faith of this country, I think there are a lot of examples of countries in the world that find a balance between its faith and between modernity, between the rest of the world. And I am certain that Afghanistan, given peace, given security, given the time to develop, is a country that can achieve similar results.
Religion is still ubiquitous in Afghan society. It can be found in all spheres of life. But when it comes to saving lives, the best miracles are provided by a hospital. In 2006, a joint initiative by the Afghan government, French government and NGOs La Chaîne de l'Espoir and Aga Khan Development Network opened this well-equipped hospital in Kabul, providing the best maternal and childcare services and the best diagnosis, surgery and treatment services for all types of health problems. It has more than 150 beds, fully equipped surgery rooms, advanced exploratory rooms for diagnosis, sophisticated labs, and a neonatal intensive care unit. It is a leading medical center in a country whose adults are traumatized war victims, whose children commonly fall prey to diarrhea, polio, and the effects of malnutrition, and whose pregnant women face great risks in childbirth. The hospital has increased its services in just a few years and now offers them in the 34 provinces of Afghanistan.
If I look at the volumes as on today, we are seeing more than 700 patients every day. Means the numbers are increasing day by day, month by month, other than whenever there are security situations.
I think we all know that the context is fragile, and there has been, it's a conflict area, and to have a hospital which provides the sort of services that this hospital does to patients from all over the country, specialized care, excellent care, patient safety, and it performs the sorts of operations which are truly miraculous.
With these small miracles, the hospital exemplifies what has been done in Kabul to restore the dignity and hope of its people, despite the political instability and the threat of those wishing to perpetuate the conflict.
Life. Peace and dignity is part of life. Without peace and dignity, life cannot exist, at least not in a tranquil way where it can grow and develop and contribute to itself, contribute to its neighbors, and contribute to the world.
Afghanistan is progressing as it comes to know the full meaning of the word peace. Meanwhile, there are almost 2 million internally displaced people. And those who have fled abroad by taking refuge mainly in Iran and Pakistan number more than 6 million.
This refugee camp just outside Peshawar, Pakistan, is but one of 300 such camps along Pakistan's 1,500-mile border with Afghanistan.
The mass influx of refugees in Pakistan and use of its territory by Afghan insurgents has led to heightened tensions between the two countries. Afghanistan and Pakistan had been getting along well for decades, twinned for geographic, religious and cultural reasons, in spite of the Durand Line frontier that the British drew on the map in 1893 that led to the first serious dispute between the two. The British were a tough player on the chessboard of colonial rule in this part of the world for 100 years. But their dominion came to an end in 1947.
The British have met with India's leaders for an important diplomatic effort in the direction of harmony. Among the cabinet members representing Britain in the conferences are Lord Pethick Lawrence, Secretary of State for India, and Sir Stafford Cripps. Then Mahatma Gandhi, long the symbol of liberty to millions of Hindus. Pandit Nehru, Congress party leader. But settlement of India's tangled affairs presented many problems. Muhammad Ali Jinnah heads India's Muslim League. The Muslims insisted on their demand for their own separate state and complete independence from the Hindu majority.
Subsequent changes throughout the region ultimately exacerbated the differences among the three new states. Nonetheless, the cities of Kabul and Lahore, as Lahore and Delhi, share many glorious episodes of history. One of the most important was the conquest of Lahore by the first Mughal Emperor Babur in 1524. Since then, and for a period of 130 years, Lahore experienced the largest demographic and economic growth in memory. The city became renowned for its opulence, its exuberant palaces and lush gardens, its artisans, and vibrant cultural life. It was the capital of the Mughal Empire intermittently during the reigns of Akbar, Jahangir, and Shah Jahan. Later it would witness a long period of conflict, initially under the rule of the Sikhs and then the British, and finally with the proclamation of independence in 1947. The partition of India and Pakistan was followed by riots, killings, persecutions, and massive exodus. 8 million Muslims left their homeland to flee to the newly created state of Pakistan, while 6 million Hindus and Sikhs traveled in the opposite direction. Lahore, disputed by India and Pakistan until the last moment, was the setting of violence and massive arrival of Muslim immigrants, doubling its population at the time. Today, the capital of the Punjab province is a cosmopolitan city with 11 million inhabitants. Some of its main attractions are the fort citadel with its royal palaces, walls and gates, the Great Badshahi Mosque beside the fort's walls, or the Shalimar Gardens, all of which are exquisite legacies of the Mughals. But its livelier heritage can be found in Lahore's walled city, the historic core. Within this relatively small space of 285 hectares, are packed 130 kilometers of bazaars, narrow and tortuous streets and lanes, and no less than 22,000 buildings. This area attests to an urban heritage of considerable historic interest and charm, and contains several elements of Mughal origin, such as the extraordinary Wazir Khan Mosque. In 2005, the government of Pakistan commissioned a project with the financial participation of the World Bank and the Punjab government to revive the deteriorating walled city. The first phase of the project was completed in 2014 and involved the improvement of local infrastructure services, such as the drinking water supply network and sewage system, as well as urban and architectural rehabilitation that included major monuments from the Mughal period.
Historic Cities program decided to take on the most challenging project, which was the walled city of Lahore itself, which, as you are aware, is about 2.5 square kilometers, very densely populated. And working there was a challenge in itself. But this goes with the focus of improving lives. And since so many people were living there, 150,000 during the daytime, and doubling to maybe 300,000, by nightfall, evening fall. So working there, improving those lives was the main object. Let me add, whether we do a monument or we do a neighborhood or we do a socio-economic appraisal, the whole purpose is how can we improve lives and make it sustainable.
The project launched many initiatives aimed at alleviating conditions of poverty and creating new economic opportunities for local residents, whether workers or artisans, entrepreneurs or traders. One of the main streets included in the project crosses the old city from west to east. The Shahi Guzarga Trail was perhaps the ceremonial route that Mughal royalty would have traversed to arrive at the fort palace in ancient times. Over the past 100 years, this major street and surrounding urban fabric attracted a great deal of uncontrolled shops and buildings. The rehabilitation project has been focused on improving the quality of architecture and urbanism, but also on reducing the pressure created by overwhelming commerce and construction. Work has been done throughout the entire area, repairing pavements, modernizing the drinking water supply and drain networks, and restoring several abandoned historical houses that were in danger of collapsing. This is the case of this narrow, tiny, tangled street with more than 20 centenarian houses.
The best example in this regard is Gali Surjan Singh. We are going to conserve the houses which are not easy to conserve. People don't know how to work on it, and people even don't afford. So they are very happy because they are not in this position to move from this area, and they are not in this position to conserve their own houses.
The walled city of Lahore Authority and the local community participated in the rehabilitation of many old houses. Several of them were classic havelis, mansions that were primarily built by wealthy Sikh and Hindu families in the 19th century by imitating the style of earlier Mughal havelis and incorporating architectural and decorative elements of Persian, Turkish, Sikh, and Hindu influences. Havelis are always designed around a central courtyard and contain spacious rooms with colorful galleries and wooden balconies. Some of these havelis had been abandoned, looted, and even burnt to the ground after the death or departure of their owners, as occurred during the persecution of Sikhs and Hindus after independence. Rehabilitation has come up after breaking down the initial mistrust of locals and real estate speculation. It has been achieved thanks to an intensive social campaign informing neighbors.
There is no welcoming attitude. There are very negative rumors. So we started working with the different people. We identified focal persons who are willing to work with us, and then we gave them orientation about the project, that what are our objectives. And then when we started working with them, we motivated them, we mobilized them. Now people come to us and ask us, please sign agreement with us and conserve our house.
Once these houses have been rehabilitated, they are returned to their owners or to new community-assigned tenants to live in and maintain in good condition. Lahore's architectural heritage is striking. June 2015 saw the completion of a project to conserve the extraordinary 17th century public baths from the Mughal era. The Shahi Hammam, inspired by the tradition of Turkish and Persian baths.
This monument was previously very hidden. When we restore it, and this is transformed into a museum facility. Almost thousands of visitors are visiting this site. During conservation work, we trained a lot of skilled persons in the new trade, like the fresco conservation and the structural stabilization, brickwork. Basically, we trained a lot of skilled persons in the traditional or historical building conservation.
After 2 years of work, its outer walls, entrance rooms, and large halls decorated with stunning floral motif frescoes have all been restored. And its complex yet perfect water supply, heating, and subsequent drainage systems have been revealed. Shahi Hammam is perhaps the last public baths of this type still standing in the Asian subcontinent. Part of another major rehabilitation project began in 2009 with the study of the problems affecting the conservation of the Great Wazir Khan Mosque, the most emblematic and popular mosque for the inhabitants of Lahore. It was built from 1634 to 1641 by a Punjabi governor or wazir during the reign of Emperor Shah Jahan, who in the same period ordered the construction of the Taj Mahal in Agra, the most popular Mughal monument in the world today. The Wazir Khan Mosque was not designed to be a monument as refined as the Taj Mahal, but as a building to occupy a site and serve a key function in the daily lives of the citizens of Lahore. It has a rectangular floor plan with 4 imposing minarets, a large central courtyard with a fountain and pond for ablutions, and a small tomb, as well as 2 pavilions and a main prayer hall. It was built by using the artisan, artistic and decorative elements of the time in the region, such as the kashikari, traditional Persian glazed tile mosaics, paintings of floral motifs, and also muqarnas of Andalusian inspiration crowning the main arches. When this complex restoration project began, it was noticed that not only was it affected by the normal problems associated with the passage of time, but its outer walls had also been damaged by the activity of adjoining shops over the years. The project managers therefore ordered their removal and even had the historical calligrapher's bazaar removed from the reception area of the entrance to the building. The perimeter of the site was also excavated to separate it from street level, as it had risen over the years, and many architectural elements blocking the entrances were removed, once again making the mosque the most striking building to rise above the houses of the walled city. But the rehabilitation of the mosque and the urban fabric around it has not been completed.
We have to rehabilitate the entire chowk. We have to conserve the mosque, the interior of the mosque, and we have to improve the facilities for the mosque on the south side, which includes ablution spaces, which includes open spaces, and the offices for management of the mosque and the chowk. It's a long project. It's about 5 years' time, but hopefully we'll be achieved.
And all of this to be followed by more new projects aimed at reviving the center of the old city.
The next phase is these houses. They are facing the chowk, and we are rehabilitating these houses, not only the exterior, but the interior also. So those people who were living there, they have been properly compensated, they have been moved out, and we are working on the interior. Those will be redone, and those will be reused for community and tourism-related activities.
The main facade now fronts a square that is large enough for locals, tourists, and the faithful to admire. The restoration of the decorative facade of the citadel's northwestern wall is another of the most distinctive rehabilitation projects undertaken recently. It is one of the largest murals in the world, measuring 450 meters long by 15 meters high, and is richly decorated with outstanding mosaic panels and fresco paintings produced by the best artisans of the Mughal era. The restoration has involved the work of up to 200 people, including architects, restorers, and artisans, professionals who have used the project to recover ancestral artisan techniques under the guidance of modern methodologies. Implementing new methodologies of architecture, engineering and design can help to document, interpret and apply the best techniques when facing major restoration challenges.
One of the major challenges we faced was the water drainage, which was rerouted during British time when they conquered this area around 1850s. They rerouted the original Mughal waterways. Originally, the water was collected inwards, but after their intervention, water was splashing outwards toward the picture wall. So this was the major cause which destroyed the decorative patterns, and even the structure of the wall was compromised.
The restoration and conservation of cultural heritage is crucial for recovering traditional arts and crafts that in many cases had been lost.
They are craftsmen who have been working on similar structures, and some have inherited this knowledge from their parents, from their grandparents. But the issue is that they don't have a similar work available in the local market. So this project has provided them this opportunity.
Restoring the bricks, mosaics, paintings and original filigrees of this wall is part of an ambitious project promoted by the local authorities with the help of the Norwegian government. Its goal is to rehabilitate all the historical palaces and gardens in the fort citadel and transform the complex into a major tourist attraction that can generate economic activity, work and jobs, although this very same restoration process has already provided work to hundreds of people. Another wonder rises above the wall at one of the corners of the citadel, the Palace of Mirrors or Sheesh Mahal. It is a white marble pavilion, ornately decorated with precious stones and mirror inlays and murals, some of which were damaged and have been replaced by glass mosaics. It was built at the time of Emperor Shah Jahan in the 17th century and was reserved for the use of the imperial family and court receptions. It is a remarkable work of art that exemplifies the refinement of Mughal rulers, displaying the taste and skill of the artisans of the time. The pavilion has fortunately survived, but conserving it is a challenging job for the young architects who dream of continuing to work on the rehabilitation of many more sites in the city.
So in 2009, when I joined AKCSP, I learned a lot of new skills and a lot of new things. So basically that's when I decided I want to do architecture, and I got admission into National College of Arts. So the main thing gave me the inspiration was the neighborhoods, the spaces around me, the magical buildings, and the community, the living conditions, which were far distinctive from the rest of the Lahore. So that was the main inspiration that I want to do something for my city.
The value of historical legacy increases through its rehabilitation, and this increased value generates wealth that has a positive impact on the community. Lahore is home to a vast legacy that is just beginning to be deservedly appreciated. From the testimonies of the pre-Islamic era to the golden age of the Mughal Empire, the inhabitants of Lahore have spectacular fortifications, palaces, mosques, tombs and gardens, such as these by Emperors Jahangir and Nur Jahan. But Lahore also possesses an amazing mixture of past and present in its streets and daily life. One example of this is a hidden historical treasure, the Mariam Zamani Begum Mosque, which can be found behind an improvised shoe store in a narrow, noisy street. Walking around, history looks to be not far from the present. Meeting past and present, taking care of cultural heritage, brings many benefits.
We understand the most important, which directly impact people, individuals, communities, is tangible benefits. But then there are all these other higher levels of benefits, which are more experienced, as it were, you know. The pride in architecture, the pride in heritage, the hope that comes with it, you know. Like our forefathers could do such great things, why can't we do it? So there's this great awareness and recognition of that. These are sustainable, full-time, they employ people. And because of that, the tourism that has increased, you know.
From 1947 until today, political life in Pakistan has witnessed periods of instability, military rule, violence and conflicts that slowed down its progress. Today, it is among the nations in the developing world that has made substantial progress in reducing poverty. Pakistan is a very young country that is forgetting the colonial era. Its population currently stands at 220 million people, 35% of whom are under the age of 15. Youth is moving towards progress, despite many social problems and the unresolved conflict with neighboring India. The Lahore Junction station connects Lahore and Delhi in a few hours. Both cities are not very far. But unfortunately, political rivalry between both countries has made that distance much longer. India is the planet's second giant after China. Its population is 1.3 billion, and it is the world's third largest economy by volume, as well as the fastest growing. But this growth has major imbalances, considering that 30% of the population lives below the poverty line, with low education levels, social and religious tensions, and violations of women's rights. The fathers of the modern homeland, Tagore, Gandhi, and Nehru, would today proudly see how India, the world's biggest democracy, has found an important place in the concert of nations. But they would also feel distressed on noting that the dreamt path to freedom, eliminating castes, violence, differences and suffering, still is a very difficult road to walk. Despite its progress, the dreamt India of the country's forefathers is still under construction, like its neighbor, Pakistan. The current political rivalry between Pakistan and India seems to be pushing them further away than they really are. Only 460 kilometers separates Lahore and Delhi, a very short distance looking back. The true origins of Delhi date back to ancient times and are lost in the mists of history. Various urban centers have merged together over the centuries, but what is today known as Old Delhi is the city that was built by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in the 17th century. But today's New Delhi is one of the world's most populated metropolises, with almost 23 million inhabitants from all corners of the Indian subcontinent. Many languages are spoken in addition to Hindi, Punjabi, and Urdu. A large majority of the population, 80%, follow the Hindu faith, while 12% are Muslims, and the rest are Sikhs, Jains, Christians, and followers of other faiths. In the streets of Chandni Chowk, one of Delhi's oldest and most popular market areas, origins and faiths intermingle without any apparent problems. This is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society whose streets are filled with color and life. It has always been like this for centuries.
Delhi was filled with migrants, and each migrant would take a look at the other migrant and say, "Who are you? Why are you here? How is it that the city of Delhi will ever prosper if rustics like you keep coming?" Decade after decade, century after century, these sentiments were echoed, and they're still talked about today. But now they fragment the city of Delhi. If you had a sense of the deep history of just that experience, that enriches all our lives.
But religious identity can be a cause for suspicion. If the Islamic faith is an element of national identity in Lahore in Pakistan, in Delhi and in India in general, it is that of the Hindu faith, despite its secular constitution. In recent years, the gradual exaltation of national identity citing homeland and religion has increased conflicts between communities. Nonetheless, Delhi still has a large Muslim presence. It owes some of its greatness to an Islamic cultural legacy that fused with local culture to usher in Indo-Islamic art. The world's tallest brick minaret, Qutub Minar, is an outstanding example of Islamic art that was built by Delhi's first Muslim ruler in the 12th century. The 14-meter diameter by 73-meter height of this imposing minaret displayed Islamic power in these lands, which had been imposed by blood and fire over local religions at various times during its history. The walls of a large mosque and other buildings constructed over previous Hindu and Jain temples have been conserved beside this minaret. The entire complex is today an archaeological site admired by tourists, regardless of its religious significance. The same goes for Delhi's most visited tourist attraction today, the Red Fort, the main residence of Mughal emperors for more than 200 years. Emperor Shah Jahan ordered its construction in 1638. The imposing red stone wall surrounding the fort is 2.4 kilometers long, and its height varies from between 18 and 33 meters. The complex has two monumental gates, Delhi and Lahore. Lahore Gate leads to a covered street bazaar selling tourist souvenirs. Further along, there is a huge landscaped esplanade housing several palaces and pavilions, interconnected by canals and water fountains. These buildings represent the pinnacle of Mughal architecture, with their mix of Persian, Timurid and Hindu construction traditions. The fort was pillaged and destroyed several times over the years as the empire declined, and was even converted into a military barracks. It was not until 2003 that it passed into the hands of the Archaeological Survey of India to ensure its conservation, and it is now a major source of tourist revenue for the city. Other important examples of the Mughal legacy in Delhi are the magnificent gardens of Sunda Nursery, 90 acres of nature and historic buildings that have been rehabilitated for the general public. Several World Heritage monuments can be found here, such as Sundarwala Burj, a small tomb located in the central axis of the gardens that has Quranic inscriptions on its inner walls, and an exquisite decoration of painted stars on the vault's plaster ceiling. The rehabilitation of this entire garden area has involved the restoration of not only these tombs, affected by years of neglect and destruction, but also the creation of canals, ponds and fountains, as well as the reintroduction of 300 floral species and dozens of plants and trees. The rehabilitation of Sunda Nursery, with the participation of public and private institutions, has given Delhi a green island in the middle of a sea of cement that is visited by thousands of people. Adjoining Sunda Nursery is another complex of historical buildings and gardens distinguished by a large tomb containing the second emperor of the Mughal dynasty, Humayun. The structure was ordered to be built by his son Akbar in the middle of the 16th century. It is a masterpiece created by architects, workers and artisans from throughout India. A big red sandstone building combined with white marble and crowned by a large white dome. It was a work that had never before been seen in the Islamic world and would serve as a model for later monumental works.
When it was built, it was far grander than anything seen anywhere in the Islamic world. And the early Mughal builders, Akbar and so on, took a lot of Indian elements into the building of this tomb. I mean, India already had 3,000 years of stone building traditions before Humayun's tomb was built.
The central building stands on a large square podium. The tomb's main room has an octagonal floor plan and is surrounded by chambers and corridors connecting with secondary rooms that house other tombs of figures from the time. A total of 150 members of the Mughal royal family, among them 5 more emperors, are buried throughout the structure, which is why it is popularly known as the dormitory of the Mughals. Humayun's tomb is much more flamboyant than that of his father Babur, the first Mughal emperor in Kabul. Not only did it inspire such later works as the Taj Mahal, it also initiated the tradition of Mughal rulers wanting to be buried in heavenly settings. In 1997, on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of India's independence, the Aga Khan Development Network offered a rehabilitation project for this World Heritage Site involving public administrations and private contributors. Work in Humayun's tomb began in 2007 and was completed in 2013 after 6 years, with 200,000 workdays undertaken by hundreds of craftsmen, supervised by conservation architects, engineers, historians, and other specialists, matching the standards of Mughal-era works of art. By work's end, the tomb and gardens have been brilliantly rescued from the darkness of oblivion. Rehabilitating all these monuments involves human and economic efforts that are sometimes called into question.
Someone may say, why are you spending so much money conserving and people are hungry, etc. I'm just saying that, so there are many contestations that we can talk about. But that aside, what I'm saying is that the conservation of these monuments are important because today it shows a very interesting part of our civilization, which is that we are a syncretic civilization. We had many influences, we had many inputs. All of them were synthesized, and we are today what we are because of that.
The Humayun Tomb and Sunda Nursery Complex is located in an archaeological area very close to the sanctuary of the famous 14th century Sufi saint, Hazrat Nizamuddin Auliya, who has been venerated by tens of thousands of Muslim pilgrims from across Asia for 700 years. As soon as it was considered lucky to rest or be buried next to the tomb of this Sufi saint, both the court and the general populace continued to build here until it became the most densely populated medieval urban area in India. The complex comprising the tombs of Nizamuddin Auliya and his disciple Amir Khusrau, as well as the mosque of Jamaat Khana, are still visited weekly by thousands of tourists and devout Muslims, more than 1 million people a year, exerting great pressure on this site. The conservation of the sanctuary has been the subject of ongoing restoration initiatives in recent years. By their side, the descendants of Nizamuddin Auliya and the religious community ensure the maintenance of the complex thanks mainly to donations.
It is the first conservation effort at any mosque which is in worship in India. And for us, that is a way of telling the Ummah, the Muslim community, that these heritage structures are also important for their heritage value and that they must respect what their original forefathers built for them and keep it in the best possible condition.
Nizamuddin Auliya was the most famous Sufi sage of his time in the entire Indian subcontinent. He advocated love and mysticism and believed that this was the authentic path to connect with God. And God's love implied loving humanity. His worldview was marked by a sense of goodness and religious pluralism. Nizamuddin and his disciple, the great poet Amir Khusrau, promoted tolerance and the mingling of cultures, and believed in the arts and music as a way to strengthen people's spirituality. Khusrau combined Persian poetic tradition with the oral literature of South Asia to introduce Sufi chants, Kabbali music, which has endured to this day as a genuine artistic expression throughout Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. Both sages would today lament the intolerance afflicting many Muslims around the world, where politics and religion are sowing endless conflicts. The heart of the old Nizamuddin district has more than 15,000 inhabitants, the vast majority of whom are Muslim families living here over several generations. These newly arrived families were immigrants who did not feel comfortable in their places of origin because of mistrust caused by their faith. They hope to find here the fraternity and stability required to rebuild their lives. But the neighborhood is densely populated, and the quality of life for its residents is relatively poor, with high rates of child malnutrition, lack of medical care and education, and serious problems in water sanitation. This situation has led to implementing a revitalization program that has already benefited 70% of residents in a short time.
There is malnutrition, there was high degrees of unemployment, there was, the cleanliness of the place was shameful, people were depressed, there is a drug problem. So yes, we could not possibly have chosen a more complicated area to work in. But over the last decade, consistent, persistent work has led to several of these parameters changing substantially.
Major improvements have also been made in medical care, which is the most demanded service by locals. Very important for them has been the opening of this modest yet efficient primary care medical center that attends emergencies and offers maternal and childcare services.
उसमें हमारे कुछ टॉपिक्स हैं जैसे कि मेंस्ट्रुएशन कैसे होता है, प्रेग्नेंट कैसे होती है, उसमें किन किन चीज़ों का हमें ध्यान रखना होता है, बच्चे की डिलीवरी होती है उसके बाद कैसे ध्यान रखते हैं, इम्यूनाइजेशन हो गया, बच्चों के साथ खेल खेलने का क्या महत्व है, ये सब टॉपिक्स हैं। तो हमने जच्चा बच्चा कार्यक्रम स्टार्ट किया, अब तक हमने 500 से 600 महिलाओं को उसमें जोड़ चुके हैं और लोगों को महिलाओं को अवेयर कर चुके हैं। उसको देखते हुए फिर महिलाओं ने हमें क्वेश्चंस किया कि जैसे आपने हमें जानकारी दी है तो हमारी लड़कियां हैं उनको भी तो जानकारी होनी चाहिए बहुत सी चीज़ों की।
Women's sexual health and the process of pregnancy and childbirth are still sensitive issues and need intense promotion. And many child deaths still occur due to malnutrition.
मैं आती हूँ कि बच्चे मेरा कमज़ोर था तो यहाँ से जो है सो हमको जो है सो कार्यक्रम में जोड़ा गया, सारी बातें सिखाई, घर पे जा ये बच्चे का जो कार्यक्रम होता है उसमें मुझे जोड़ा गया, यहाँ बहुत सारी बातें सिखाई बताई और जो है सो घर पर भी जा कर के कहते थी और बोलते बच्चे को टीके लगा टाइम से बोलती थी जा कर के कि टीके लगवाओ, टीके लगवाते थे। बच्चा मेरा जो है सो बहुत कमज़ोर था तो यहाँ से खाना ना सब मिलता, नाश्ता खाना सब मिलता है और हाँ अभी तो बच्चा ठीक है। फिर मुझे जो है सो 2 बच्चे थे तो उसको पेट में एक परेशानी था बच्चे को, तो बच्चा पैदा होने के बाद डेथ कर गया, ये बच्चा कमज़ोर था।
The medical center promotes vaccination and health education campaigns in a difficult social context due to many prejudices and the lack of economic and cultural resources of families. Moreover, hygiene is a crucial problem in a densely populated neighborhood, with thousands of pilgrims arriving daily from all over the country to visit the dargah.
The environmental hygiene, the personal hygiene is a bit wanting in this area. So they are coming up again and again with these fungal infections. And we have patients coming from all over India. They come to beg over here. And so they don't have a proper house, they don't have a proper toilet. Pelvic inflammatory diseases are also very common because of there is a lack of hygiene and a little bit of promiscuity also over here. There is some amount of drugs also over here.
Improving the quality of life of the residents can also happen with small initiatives. For example, creating free public baths for locals and visitors. Many Nizamuddin Basti residents lack running water and toilets to wash themselves or attend to their needs at home. Access to public baths is an improvement that not only reassures them, but also restores their dignity. Schooling is also part of the multidisciplinary program to improve the quality of life and socio-economic expectations. But schooling for children is unfortunately rarely a priority among the poorest families. School absenteeism is very high, so extra efforts must be made to convince parents of the importance of attending school daily, as this will help them break out of the vicious circle of poverty and criminality.
जब हम उनके घर गए, बच्चों के माँ बाप से बात करी तो माँ बाप चाहते हैं, लेकिन कुछ माँ बाप ये चाहते हैं कि मतलब ये कहते हैं कि हमारे सामने ये परेशानियाँ, आर्थिक व्यवस्था जो है उनकी वो बहुत कमज़ोर है, तो वो ये कहते हैं कि हम तो काम पे चले जाते हैं, हम कैसे ध्यान दें, अगर हम काम पर नहीं जाएंगे तो हम खाएंगे कहाँ से। इस वजह से वो चाहते हुए भी सपोर्ट नहीं कर पाते, लेकिन वो ये चाहते हैं कि हमारे बच्चे पढ़ें। हम नहीं पढ़ पाए, लेकिन हमारे बच्चे पढ़ें, और वो चाहते हैं, हमें भी बोलते हैं।
Until very recently, employment levels in men and women of working age was very low. Vocational centers have therefore been set up to train people in trades with which they can earn a living. The Urban Renewal Project for the Nizamuddin Basti offers an opportunity for young people and women to learn new skills and increase their employability. One of these centers can be seen here and includes, among other things, sewing, cooking, and also printing workshops. Some of these workshops have been set up as companies to sell services and obtain revenues that benefit the students, providing them with a quick way to introduce themselves to the labor market. A computer center has also been set up to provide training to young men and women wanting to master computer language and programs that are so necessary now to apply for many jobs.
Basically, what I think is the lady does management at its best. So what computer does manage the stuff. So ladies are more competent than the boys in that work because they know how to manage.
Are you agreeing? No. I'm not agreeing.
The streets have also been repaved, houses in danger of collapse have been repaired, and projects have been launched to restore buildings of great historical value such as the old tomb of a renowned minister of the Mughal Empire, Atgar Khan. Another brilliant example is the already completed restoration project of the spectacular tomb of Atgar Khan's son, Mirza Aziz Kokaltash. A square floor plan structure built entirely of marble, with 64 columns supporting 25 domed bays. The historical legacy of the Mughals in Nizamuddin Basti can be found not only in the tombs commemorating the powerful, but also in ancient houses and amazing medieval baolis, urban cisterns that were used as places for social gatherings and religious ceremonies, as well as providing drinking water to the local inhabitants. After removing deposits and garbage accumulated over 700 years, the stepwell has been restored and all its surrounding houses have been reinforced, returning it to its original appearance and social purpose. The rehabilitation has added value to the neighborhood and created wealth for the community.
This is not only a restoration of a monument, it's a restoration of a community. The Nizamuddin Basti has got a new life now. Otherwise, it was a neglected slum, completely ignored slum. Now it is a resurrected place. People are proud to live here. People are proud to work here. So that is a tremendous thing. Figures, I don't know. Monies, I don't know. But I do know that it has transformed the neighborhood.
The Nizamuddin Basti rehabilitation has shown that social aid initiatives and conservation projects can and should be part of a single comprehensive process that can help to improve the life conditions of its inhabitants. The Friday Mosque in Delhi was built by the Mughals in the mid-17th century. More than 5,000 workers and artisans toiled to build and decorate these red stone and white marble walls. Today it is visited by thousands of Muslim faithful and tourists daily. It was originally called Masjid-i-Jahan Numa, the world-reflecting mosque, the mosque that dominates the view of the world, a flamboyant name in the imperial Islamic past of Delhi. Cultural heritage has the power to inspire. It can reveal a community, society, or country at its best to itself and to the rest of the world. Conserving and rehabilitating this legacy, thereby improving people's lives, is a way of believing in what everyone, individually or collectively, is capable of creating in order to view their own lives with pride, dignity, and hope.